I'd like to introduce Mr. David Wilkes, the Senior Vice President of Retail Council of Canada.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here and certainly an honor to recognize and help celebrate the signing of the free trade agreement between our two great countries. As you've heard from previous speakers, Korea and Canada do have a strong trading relationship. What I'd like to chat about today is three things, and really focus my comments on some of the retail opportunities that exist in Canada as we expand our relationship between our two countries. I'd also like to share with you who the Retail Council of Canada is and who we represent and the perspective that allows me to bring to this conversation. Retail Council of Canada represents over 45,000 storefronts across the country. Our members include grocery retailers, which I'll talk about in a little bit, as well as specialty retailers, general merchants, clothing, as well as electronics. So we cover the entire retail industry in this country. We're very proud to represent retailers across the country, and our sector is the #1 employer in Canada. We have approximately $480 billion worth of sales, and we're a key driver to the economy's performance within the borders of our country. Within the grocery sector, which is where I'll spend a lot of my comments, we represent these fine companies. There's many representatives with us here in the room today, and I welcome them all. But where these companies come from is that they're on the leading edge of what's happening in the grocery industry. They also charge Retail Council of Canada with working collaboratively on three key areas that I'll talk to you a little bit more about. So I'd like to spend the majority of my time talking to you about some of the key drivers and key influencers and key areas of focus that we have within the Canadian grocery industry: food safety, health and wellness, and sustainability. I'll spend some time describing some of the activity that we're undertaking in each one of those and why they're an important aspect of doing business in this country, and why I encourage you, as you consider opportunities that are brought about by the free trade agreement, that you understand and position yourselves against these expectations. First, food safety. This is our #1 priority. Within the Canadian grocery industry, we have a strong reputation and take this very seriously to ensure that we're able to deliver everyday safe, quality food to Canadian consumers. From a Retail Council of Canada perspective, we work in three key areas to maintain this high level of standard. First, we develop a series of programs that allow our members to train their employees in the proper handling and storage of food. We also have a series of best practices or training programs and procedures to help manage at the retail level, at the store level, as well as at the warehouse level. Things like proper cleaning techniques, things like proper refrigeration levels. And then finally, we work very closely, and I really encourage you to take a look at this, with the Global Food Safety Initiative, or GFSI as we call it. This is an industry-driven collaborative program to advance food safety, both through sharing information as well as developing procurement standards that is applied on a global basis. Second area that we need to consider when we're looking at food safety is there is a series of new regulations or new laws that are coming into place. These are being driven by our federal government in Ottawa that is taking a comprehensive review of looking at the labeling requirements for foods as well as the food safety procedures that we have. The Safe Food for Canadians Act is the key legislative driver for this. There is over 13 consultations currently underway between business and government that will look at redefining pretty well every aspect of food safety and labeling within this country. From a Retail Council perspective, we view this as a tremendous opportunity to not only update the regulations, but to streamline them and harmonize them so that we have a more efficient system within the country. But it also means change. And with change means making sure that you're aware of the new labeling requirements, you're aware of the new import requirements, and there are some changes in that regard, and you're also aware of the new food safety protocols or expectations and the testing that government will undertake. We're also working very closely with government on a new recall, or improving, our recall procedures. As some of you may know, we have had some very high profile recalls within the meat industry. We are very proud that these recalls are done efficiently and the products are removed from the shelves that are in question. But in every case, when we have one of these, we take a look, we step back, we cooperate with government and understand how we can improve the communication between government and industry in order to make sure that the products are identified quickly and where appropriate removed from the shelves. And the final area from a food safety perspective is making, as I've indicated, making sure we have the right training procedures and right best practices to ensure a safe food is delivered to the consumer. Making sure we're working with government to get the laws that govern our sector developed properly. But importantly, and perhaps the most important, as I've indicated by a picture of the world here, it's becoming a very small world. As with the free trade agreement that we have just signed between our two countries, we're seeing more and more sourcing happen on a global basis as opposed to just within our backyard. So what we need to do from an industry perspective is make sure that we are aware of the emerging issues, that we partner with universities and thought leaders to understand what are the new emerging food safety risks, but more importantly, how do we combat them? What type of programs do we need to put in place? What type of new testing measures do we need to put in place? And what type of new preventative control plans do we need? We're very proud that we have just recently partnered with two of the leading food safety universities in Canada, the University of Guelph and McGill University in Montreal, that will help us be aware of these changes that are happening on a global basis and make sure that we educate and inform our members to take the necessary steps to maintain the high level of food safety that we're so proud of. So food safety is a fundamental responsibility that is really just the foundation of doing business in this country from a grocery perspective. The next two areas I want to talk about are focused on taking care of yourself and the health and wellness agenda that the previous speaker also talked about, but also taking care of the environment, which we are also custodians. So from a health and wellness perspective, there is no doubt that this is a growing area of focus for Canadian consumers. We have seen information from the World Health Organization that indicated that obesity is a major problem, not only in Canada, but in many developed countries around the world. When we look at some of the recent stats, over a third of our young people are considered obese. So this is something that we need to get on top of from an industry perspective, and we need to work with government and our customers to make sure that we're providing the right information to make the right choices for Canadian consumers. There's a couple of key things that are going to be happening over the next little while that will drive this agenda. One, we're going to see our government undertake an investigation. The Canadian Senate is going to be looking into obesity trends and what are the key drivers, such as sugar, potentially, that are causing these the increases in obesity rates that I described. Secondly, we're going to see a consultation done on the type of nutrition information that is provided to Canadian consumers on the package, and we are going to see some changes in that regard as it relates both to the percent of recommended daily value of various products, including sugar, and the types of information that are provided on the label. So if we step back and take a look at this issue and understand that it is an important one for our governments and for our consumers, we ask ourselves, what are we doing about it? We are very proud that at Retail Council we have engaged in some collaborative programs. The Eat Well program that we see our friend Mr. Zucchini up there on the screen, which are providing Canadian families with information on how to make the right and appropriate and healthy choices for their families. We're also about to engage in a new program with our supplier or manufacturer partners that looks at the right type of information that we'll be providing on the label and helping Canadians understand the amounts of each foods that they should be consuming. And I should mention that these programs that are undertaken on an industry level only complement some of the work that the grocery members that I referenced earlier in my presentation do on a proprietary or individual basis to make sure that their consumers, when they walk in the front doors of their stores, have access to the information they're looking for in order to provide their families with the right types of products. The final key area that I'd like to talk about from a grocery perspective is around sustainability. So as I mentioned, if health and wellness is about making sure as an industry we're providing Canadians with the right type of products and the right type of information to take care of themselves, sustainability talks about taking the responsibility to take care of our environment, which is also another expectation that our customers have. This falls into two areas. On the top of the slide, around the blue box, are recycling products and food waste. There is an expectation that is being placed on industry, both by our governments as well as our customers, that the packaging that goes into the system is that we have responsibility not only from a financial perspective to recycle it and make sure that it doesn't go into landfill, but also from a societal expectation as well, that these products are not thrown out, but they are removed from that waste system, they are recycled, and the value that those products have, whether it's the aluminum, the corrugate cardboard, or the paper, is reused for new and different products. Another key area that I want to provide a perspective on is the expectation that is being placed on our industry around things like animal welfare, and from a broader retail perspective around as we source more and more products on a global basis, around labor standards, around building safety, around the way various products are harvested, and the people that are undertaking those tasks. We have seen within the Canadian context an increasing amount of activity from special interest or activist groups that are the demands on the grocery retail sector to ensure that the producer groups that we're working with, whether that might be cattle, it might be pork, it might be fish, it might be hens that are laying eggs, that the conditions that those animals are raised in is done in a humane way, and that we can work with the producers to ensure that those practices are appropriate. From a Retail Council of Canada perspective, we work with a group called the National Farm Animal Care Council that does develop standards that are organized not only by the retail industry, but by the producer groups and veterinarians that ensure that the practices that are being used on farms are the appropriate ones. So as we consider opportunities that do exist within the Canadian grocery market, I urge you to step back and think about the food safety standards that I've talked about, making sure you understand the expectations that we have from a Canadian government perspective, but also get involved in things like the Global Food Safety Initiative, and also understand how we can take advantage of the trends that both myself and the previous speaker have talked about as it relates to health and wellness, and helping the consumer take care of themselves, and sustainability, both as it relates to the products that we sell and the packaging associated with them, as well as the standards that we have for the producer groups that we work with. So if that's what's driving the Canadian grocery industry, let me give you a little perspective on some of the big drivers from an overall retail perspective as we consider opportunities that we have within the retail environment between Canada and Korea. As I step back and try to provide a perspective from what we hear from our 45,000 members, there's two key things that are really, really influencing the way retailers go to market and the way they think about their business. The first is the aging population that we've already talked about, and the changing population, and I'll give you my perspective on that. And the second is the way that we communicate with consumers. Let me talk to you first about cell phones. For someone of my generation, the cell phone is simply a way to make a phone call and tell people that you're on your way home. But cell phones have really changed the way that businesses communicate with consumers, and more importantly, they've changed the way that you can target or understand and deliver specific messages to consumers, messages that they're expecting and that will help drive their buying patterns. A couple of statistics to illustrate that. Cell phones in Canada, according to our friends at the Canadian Wireless and Telecommunications Association, 27.8 million subscribers. So that's, looking at our population, 75% of all Canadians have a cell phone subscription. Might seem like a lot until we look at what's happening in other countries around the world, where in Korea, as an example, there are over 56 million cell phone subscriptions, which is 111% of all of the population, so more than a one-to-one basis. So the way that we communicate, the way that we explore buying options. And the way that we get information about the products that are being offered by retailers across this country is going to continue to change as we see our penetration levels on cell phones catch up with other countries around the world. And so what are people using their cell phones for? And more importantly, what are the opportunities that retailers are using to communicate on a one-on-one basis with their customer? So they're not only being used for the basics, compare pricing, sometimes right within the store. They're also being used to find the nearest store and the location of your favorite shopping destination. They're being used to check out flyers, but more importantly, rather than just a broad-based communication that is being sent to all consumers of a particular chain, coupons are being delivered directly to the consumer's phone as they travel past a store, and that it is an opportunity to incent them to come and visit and enjoy the experience. And increasingly, certainly with Apple's introduction of their new iPhone and the ability to pay through the mobile device that was never available through Apple products, I think we're going to see increasing mobile payments. So as more and more people become familiar with phones, we're going to see the opportunity that it presents to communicate directly on a one-on-one basis, right from identifying the product, promoting the product, and paying for the product. And this is going to be a significant change to the way retail, I believe, operates around the world. And I believe this form of communication and technology will provide opportunities for people to enter the market in a way that they haven't been able to before, because you'll be able to target specific communities, specific types of consumers, specific areas and geographic zones in a more efficient way than you have before. So it really is a brave new world as we look to how to communicate with consumers. And as has been mentioned earlier, Canada certainly has an aging population. We are growing older. Our age profile is amongst the highest, or oldest, excuse me, within the G8 countries, and that's certainly going to be driving some of the retail opportunities that we will be needing to explore as we go forward, and the types of products and services, and even the size of stores that are made available within the market. Also, over the next 10 years, one of the key trends that we're going to see from a Canadian perspective is there's going to be fewer people entering the labor force than those that are leaving it. Obviously, these two trends are connected. As people age and retire, it's going to put a stress, if you will, or a change in the environment, not only from how people are shopping, when they're shopping, the time of day they're shopping, the products that they're looking for, but it's also going to be a challenge from a labor force perspective for all industries, but in particular retail, to make sure that they have the right staff to provide the service to their customers. And then finally, to agree with the trend that the previous speaker mentioned, we are certainly becoming a more multicultural country. We are seeing that, as was mentioned in 2011, 20.6% of Canadians were foreign-born. By 2031, according to the most recent Statistics Canada information, we expect, or they expect, that this amount, this percentage will be between 25 and 28% of all Canadians who are born outside the borders of our country. So we're getting a more connected customer through smartphones. We're becoming older. We're having fewer people working. And we're a much more multicultural market than we've ever been before. No one said it was going to be boring, but there's certainly tremendous opportunity, and I think that the free trade agreements that we're signing, not only with Korea, but our other countries around the world, will facilitate these opportunities. So I'd just like to wrap up with 4 slides that talk about how all this change is coming together and the influence that it is having on the retail industry within our country, but more specifically taking a look at some of the changes that are happening within our largest market, the City of Toronto, Greater Toronto, and within the grocery sector, which is where I started my comments. So if we look at population growth within Toronto, we can see that by 2017 we're going to be edging up towards 6.8 million people within the market. From a grocery perspective, sales are continuing to grow, but we're not seeing rapid growth, we're just seeing steady growth. And once again, by 2017, will be upwards of $18 billion. But if we look deeper in that, and I think this is where the real opportunity lies, and where we really need to step back and take a look at how we can service the consumer that I've talked about in a more efficient way, is that the number of ethnic grocers are going to be increasing dramatically from the current levels of around 40 or just over to edging up to 140, so a 5-fold increase. The sales through ethnic grocers are going to certainly outstrip the sales of the overall grocery industry, and the market share that this sector of the economy represents is going to grow from around 4% currently to nudging up to almost 20% of the entire market. These are the opportunities that exist within Canadian retail. These are the opportunities that I look forward to for our two countries exploring together. And it is only our own creativity that will limit the business that we can grow together. So thank you very much for the opportunity to share my perspective. I'm very proud to represent the retail industry within Canada. It is a dynamic and vibrant industry, where our number one focus is the customer that walks in our front door every day, and the front door of our members every day. I believe the more liberalized trade that we have across the country will give us more and different, across the world, will give our country more and different opportunities to service that customer in a way that only continues to exceed their expectations. So congratulations again on this conference, and thank you very much for the opportunity to share my perspective.